This is a relay project.
Real Talk starts right now. Here's Ryan Jespersen.
June is National Indigenous History Month, and we're grateful that you've joined us for this, a special presentation of the Real Talk Roundtable. We're going to check in just a second, spend some time with three remarkable storytellers. They also happen to be entrepreneurs. They work in the tourism space, and the work that they're doing and the passion that they display in retelling and in many cases shining new light on Indigenous history, Métis and Inuit history in Canada is truly inspiring. We're going to be looking to our Real Talk live chat powered by Park Power throughout this, and I'm confident that this audience will have stories of your own, and it wouldn't be Real Talk if we didn't open with a little controversy. So we're going to throw a hot potato to our panelists coming up in just a second. You may have seen this story of an Ontario elected school board councillor that's been suspended after speaking out against land acknowledgements. So we'll go there in just a quick second. I also wanted to let you know on the back nine of this episode, we're going to be following up on our conversation from earlier this week on infill in Canada's major cities. It's particularly relevant in Edmonton because one of the leading mayoral candidates, Tim Carmel, has called for a moratorium on infill until the city can get things sorted. Well, the feedback from you, Real Talkers, in our email inbox, on our Instagram post, and on our YouTube channel, for that matter, has been overwhelming. You've spoken out and said that this demands more of a focus. The audience, quite frankly, and I'm not trying to be divisive, I'm just being real. The audience is split on this, but there's a lot of nuance as well, and so we want to cover that before we get to the Flamethrower presented by our friends at the Diakiws of Northwest Edmonton and Sherwood Park. You have a lot to say about that library book controversy that the government has waded into. If you missed it in our most recent episode, Education Minister Dimitrios Nikolaitis joining us, as did Laura Winton from the Library Association of Alberta. Two different perspectives on that story, and of course we want to hand the platform over to you, Real Talkers, as we wrap up our podcast week. So that's exactly what we'll do. Johnny, why don't we get to this? Because this is a story that's making news across the country, and I think people certainly have different views on this one. An elected Ontario school board councillor by the name of Catherine Kronas has been suspended by her board for expressing an opinion about land acknowledgements. Want to play the video for you, Real Talkers, so you have context? Then we're going to introduce our panelists and see what they have to say about all this. Here's elected school board councillor Catherine Kronas. This is what got her suspended.
Hi, I'm Catherine Kronas, and I just wanted to say, as a parent member of the Hamilton Wentworth District School Board, I would like to emphasize that Principal does not speak on my behalf with regards to the land acknowledgement. In my view, the board's imposition of a land acknowledgement during our school council meetings undermines the democratic process and constitutes a form of compelled speech, which I believe contravenes the Canadian Charter of Rights and Freedoms. There is no school board policy mandating its inclusion. In my opinion, the sentiments implied by the land acknowledgement are political in nature, highly controversial, and therefore divisive and inappropriate within a government institution. And I respectfully request that my objection be noted in the minutes of this meeting.
Okay, so everybody's talking about this now as we say good morning to Lieutenant Navy Keith Diakiw, Kendra Dudzic, and Matricia Bauer, who will form our Real Talk Roundtable today. A hot potato, but I know you won't mind. Matricia, your thoughts on the elected councillor's comments, her suspension, and the bigger picture around land acknowledgements?
Yeah, well, I think it's a bit misinformed. I mean, if we're talking the Canadian Constitution, it's basically built on treaty. And so treaties are those are agreements between the First Nations people and the Crown, and the whole Constitution is basically built on that. So acknowledging the fact that you're on Indigenous land isn't political. It's not political in nature. It's actually really respectful. And I think in this day and age, especially when we're in a position of teaching children, we want to teach them how to be respectful. We want to teach them, where they're standing on. I mean, we literally stand on the bones of our ancestors, Ryan. So, acknowledging that fact is it's just smart. And the fact that she's been laid off, or dismissed, I mean, it really goes to show where they stand as a school organization.
For context, lawyers that have been provided by the Justice Center for Constitutional Freedoms have issued a legal warning letter to the Hamilton Wentworth District School Board over the suspension of Ms. Kronas. Keith, where's your head at on this?
Yeah, it's kind of shocking because when you think of in the spirit of reconciliation, we'd be a lot further along. Like, that it's somewhat of a buzzword for a lot of people. And, it's kind of shocking because, we should be at a better place because, again, that foundational principle of acknowledging those that came before us, all the blood, sweat, and tears to get us where we are today. And, for me, on my experiences, right, we basically do a land welcome because you can kind of see how some people might think it's kind of institutional, right, a check in the box, but really speak from the heart. And maybe from her point of view with meetings, they're very regimented, like Robert's Rules of Order and stuff like that. So maybe she's kind of in that kind of rut and not really reflecting on what's important in today's society, right? To kind of ground yourself and start in a good place.
In our live chat powered by Park Power, Erica says, imagine if every piece of conquered land on Earth had to be acknowledged or had acknowledgements made about who previously had lived there. It would be endless. Tony says, well, everybody's entitled to their opinions, right or wrong, but you have to accept the consequences. Why is it so hard to just accept a land acknowledgement? It's not like they're being asked to give up a kidney. Kendra, where are you at on this one?
Yeah, I really liked what Keith had to say about calling it a land welcome. The Indigenous culture I've come to know is they share, and we like to storytell, and a sharing circle to start off the conversation and having that land welcome part of it. It's a good way to start. It starts it off in a good way, and it sets good intentions, and it gives everybody the opportunity to learn about the history, and I think it's really important.
80s Fanify wonders, why does this teacher want to erase history? Not a teacher, an elected councillor. I will say this, I'm not sure that the suspension is necessary. As a white guy, by the way, let's acknowledge that. Okay, here's my context. But I'm just saying, like, I host events professionally, and I would say the majority of the events that I host open with land acknowledgements, but not all of them. For what it's worth, we wrap our show with a land acknowledgement. We want that to be part of our presentation. The Edmonton Oilers open games with a land acknowledgement, but I also can recognize the perspective of people who think differently on it, and I encourage people to think differently. And we always sort of think that, to a certain degree, everybody's got a right to their own opinion as long as it's not bringing harm to others. Now, this may inflict some sort of discomfort with other people. People may strongly disagree with this individual. I would also point out that as an elected councillor, any elected official takes a risk on their own employment future with their hot takes, right or wrong, good or bad. It is a democracy. I don't know about the suspension.
Well, I think that the suspension goes to show the levity that the board takes in perspective to this particular opinion. Yeah. And I mean, that's their right. Obviously, that's been countered with a letter. But I think that levity or that, gravity for that particular opinion is important. It shows a boundary that people may or may not want to cross, but for whatever reason, they've taken that particular stance. And, I, for one, as an Indigenous person, stand behind that.
And obviously the board has every right to do whatever the hell it wants. That's the whole point of a board, right? Yeah.
And I mean, land acknowledgements can become a little bit rote. Like, they can become something, this is what we do before we start a meeting and we have to do this. But, land acknowledgements aren't meant to be something that you have to do. They're meant to be an acknowledgement of the land that you stand on, understanding that it's colonized. And as an Indigenous woman living within a colonial construct, I find it, refreshing when people acknowledge how the Constitution came to be and what land that they're actually standing on. I just think that in this day and age, if you're not doing that you're probably a little bit misinformed.
The work that you've been doing, let's officially welcome each of you. I've given everyone your names and a slight context, but now to introduce you to our audience, I don't know, Matricia, that you need much of an introduction. I think most people are familiar, Matricia Bauer, with the work that you've done with Warrior Women. People can check out warriorwomen.ca. Recognized as a visionary leader in the heart behind this movement, a proud member of the Sturgeon Lake Cree Nation. You're operating, of course, out of Jasper, Alberta, but your influence and teachings resonate globally, to say the least. And your traditional name, is that She Who Moves Mountains? What's the official in your language? How do you pronounce it?
Yeah, so it's Iskowachi Tawachi Nitzigetsan. So yeah, that's okay. My friends can't say it either.
Is the translation "She Who Moves Mountains"?
Yeah, it is a literal translation of "She Who Moves Mountains," and it took me a while. I actually was in Jasper for 6 months before I realized that "She Who Moves Mountains" moved to the mountains.
Yeah.
Yeah, but when I first got that, I thought, geez, why can't I get Dancing with Wolves? It sounds a little easier, but my elder said it was already taken, and
That's Elder Frida Maynard.
yeah, Elder Frida is the one who gave me that name, and she's a residential school survivor. She was from Jussard. My mom was from Girard. They're 40 kilometers away, so very similar experiences. So by understanding her story, I was able to understand my natural mother's story as well. So yeah.
So cool. Keith Diakiw, a proud Métis, professional geologist. You've brought in like a handful of rocks that are on the table right now. I suspect you may tell us about those in a second. Educator and entrepreneur, you bring together culture, science, and storytelling. You're the founder and CEO, the GEO,
yeah.
the Geo Experience Officer of Talking Rock Tours, which is the world's first 100% Indigenous owned and operated geo-educational company. Take us into this.
Yeah, what makes it really special is, we don't learn what I kind of share on the experiences that I provide, because they're all discovery tours. So it's literally providing the natural and the cultural history of the geologic wonders of Alberta. So I'm here in Amiskwaciy, Waskagan, Beaver Hills House, as we know today as Edmonton, but essentially I can offer tours anywhere in Alberta. So whether it's for fellow teachers, in international guests, or even organizations in colleges, universities. So it's just kind of a wide audience. It's something that I never really experienced when I thought of like building the business plan and what I was going to kind of cater to. It's just kind of blossomed into so many petals, because again, the Métis being the flower people, we were kind of, a master of many, I guess a jack of all trades, master of none, kind of like we're that bridge between two worlds. And I'm happy to be in that realm, right? Because I actually consider myself a double breed. The government's called us half-breeds. It's a way to almost like devalue us, but it's like our superpower, right? Because we have that Indigenous worldview with European ingenuity into one individual that kind of bridges the past to the present and with our ancestors before us. So yeah, we kind of navigate just like the mighty North Saskatchewan River, like meandering between two worlds and being that important bridge for people.
It's so obvious that you guys are professional storytellers. It's so obvious when you talk, and I love it. Most people are going to listen to this on a podcast, actually, so sometimes I'll ask a guest to sort of share what they're wearing and why they've chosen to wear it. You come in and like it's not your average safety vest. It's not your average reflective vest. Tell us about some of the most significant elements of what you're representing on the show today.
Well, this is my regalia as a geologist and a proud Michif, proud Métis, and literally everything you see over my heart are like gifts over the past 7 years on my journey with Talking Rock Tours. So being a geologist, all that field work, I just wanted that shout out for earth scientists around the world, because this is kind of our work dress. And of course I carry my ancestors with me because I have my sash from Batoche. And yeah, it's just like, Canada's first patriotic flag, the Métis flag, right, flown into battle in 1816, the Battle of Seven Oaks, and right, our leader, Louis Riel. So, and again, being an Indigenous veteran. So it's like there's always meaning to everything that I do as well as what I wear, because it's just, we've been silenced for so long, and, to be a voice for them since 1885.
I love that. Kendra, welcome to the show. Kendra Dudzic, The Woods Experience, which people can check out at thewoods.ca. At thewoods.ca. You're co-owner of this, a family-run tourism business nestled in the heart of nature, along with your husband, Jesse, a passionate outdoorsman, and your in-laws, Wendy and Gary, who are on a journey to reconnect with their Indigenous roots and traditional knowledge. So you're helping lead a one-of-a-kind land-based experience that weaves together Indigenous culture, wellness, and the natural world. Help us understand it.
Yeah, the Woods Experience is a place where guests can come and unwind in nature. It's a true passion of our entire family, so we work together. We wouldn't be who we are or where we are without each member of our family. We all bring some unique different skill sets to the table to operate. And guests can come out and stay in a teepee or a cabin. We've got a Nordic wilderness spa, native wild trading post on site. We do cultural and land-based teachings, as well as we showcase other Indigenous artisans and our community, like farm community, in our store there.
So it sounds like there's a family journey happening, though, with a journey to reconnect with Indigenous roots. What's that all about?
Yeah, so my mother-in-law, Wendy, she has been learning her Indigenous culture. She kind of grew up outside of it. So she's been on this journey for a number of years now. She's been in business since 2010. And since then, we've kind of slowly gained our land and kind of navigated learning the Indigenous culture in our own way and building those relationships. And now we have a story to tell. My husband and I have 2 young boys, and we want to learn that culture and be able to pass it on to them. And so not only is it a place for other people to come and learn, but they can kind of come and learn alongside of us because we're doing the same thing.
Oh, very cool. Matricia, this is, I guess, in a way, I've witnessed it firsthand, this family collaboration. You and your daughter, Mackenzie, running Warrior Women and drumming and singing together, performing together. Can you talk about the significance of how you shared your culture from the outset within your family and just kind of the importance of that?
Yeah, I think as a 60 scooper, revitalization or decolonization was certainly a part of my journey. But what I didn't realize was how much that would affect my children as I was doing that. And so as I was regaining my culture, I was literally raising my daughter and my son within it. And that becomes really apparent when you meet somebody like Mac. I think it's one of the things that makes Warrior Women unique, that sort of intergenerational story. Often when we meet visitors, we can answer from a dual perspective. I can talk about the way things were in my generation, and Matt can talk about things the way they are in her generation. And that duplicity or those 2 different stories, they really make a difference. They resonate with people. They can see similarities between my generation and then they can see the change in reconciliation. They can see the change in education. They can see the change in raising a daughter within her culture and how strong she is with her business and the way that she performs, throughout her lifestyle, the way that she's embraced her culture. And I honestly, that was sort of, it's probably one of the proudest things I've done as an Indigenous woman, but it definitely was a secondary thing that I didn't consider at the outset.
When it comes to National Indigenous History Month, have you found an increased awareness? I want to talk to you. There's so many layers to what you're doing right now, including the fact that you're operating out of Jasper, which I know is so eager to welcome people back. And it goes without saying, we're approaching the 1-year anniversary of this wildfire and the whole 9 yards. But have you seen through the month of June an increased awareness and increased interest in what you do with Warrior Women and people seeking, regardless of their background, to better understand Indigenous history in Canada?
Yeah, 100%. Like within 20 years, the questions are different. They're deeper. They're more thought out. People are further along on their reconciliation. I'm dealing with people who are already allies. They're moving into accomplishment. So, there's an evolution in the way that people are dealing with reconciliation and how they want to approach that objective. And it's really nice to see. It challenges me on the daily. I get questions that I can't always answer right at the outset. And so I love having those deeper conversations. I think it really is interesting for people who gather in circles around me. They can also see from other people where their journey is, and it's interesting for people to say, oh, I'm not there yet, or that's where I need to be, or I've never thought of asking that question, and just sort of deepening their relationship with the Indigenous story that makes Canada.
Keith, how do you're collaborating through your tours, again, talkingrocktours.com, with university geoscientists, right? Historians, elders. Can you talk to us about how that all comes together for the experience of people that are participating?
Well, I truly feel that things happen for a reason, and somewhat our paths are laid before we're born. And for me, navigating from being a bit of a professional student, because mom and dad were like, after 1 degree, stop, you're going to be too educated. But with that journey and building those relationships with, fellow students that became professors, as well as the professors that I took courses, I'm very lucky that I kind of stuck around Edmonton after I graduated from the University of Alberta. And, those relationships are still deeply rooted. And when I have an opportunity for PD sessions, whether I'm basically brought in as an educator or do a workshop, whether it's a field trip, those have kind of blossomed into other opportunities. So having a long-standing relationship with the PEGA, being a volunteer for rocks and minerals for teachers throughout Edmonton. That's kind of led me to, the geology house of like that side of the house for my experience and my knowledge. But then also for me being, a proud mixed race, right? Because I'm also French and Ukrainian, brought up Ukrainian. The last 7 years has really been embracing the proud Métis heritage. So with the involvements with the Métis Nation Alberta as a proud citizen, with Métis Crossing, the up and coming major attraction of Alberta, you can see how that's kind of built with gaining elders' trust to share their stories, to kind of have that permission to share with the public. Because when I was doing the business plan back in 2017, I thought it was going to be easy, to attain knowledge. But then you realize like the proper protocols, the relationship building, it's a lifelong journey. Because that's one of those elders said to me at the beginning, it's like, buckle up, get ready for this. It's going to be a lifelong thing. It's not, if I really wanted to make money, I would have opened up a Tim Hortons, right? My heart's not in that. It was just something more meaningful, because it's not about the money, because of course, we need money to provide for our families. It's really giving back and being that light for future generations to kind of carry the torch in a good way, especially now with the spirit of reconciliation.
So you're we always say on the show, seek to understand, which we stole, by the way. That's, I think it's Covey's.
That's right.
Yeah. So we don't pretend like it's ours, but we try to follow that practice. So you're seeking to understand. You say starting about 7 years ago. Was that something personal for you, or did you like grow up with this awareness? Like, were you wearing a sash in high school, or is this something been kind of an adult journey for you?
Well, it's one of those things like going to family functions, because I'm originally from Saskatchewan. So shout out for all those Saskatchewan listeners.
Yeah, you got it.
And then I grew up in Hinton. So like my cousin across the table, it's just one of those things where I kind of consider myself a prairie boy and a mountain man. So it's just important to kind of always know where you come from, because with your deep-rooted background will actually pave like that, meaningful forward direction.
Yeah, but kind of more of like an adult journey in the sense of connecting with your Métis heritage and better understanding the traditions.
Yeah, because it's like I would go to family reunions and being like, half of them are what I would consider First Nations. And then, you basically say, Mom and Dad, what's going on here, right? And literally that's where, I was seeking. And then, of course, finding out like, oh, yeah, we're related to someone important in Canadian history. And as you get older, you do more digging, and then, of course, you do your genealogy to be a card-carrying Métis citizen. So that was eye-opening, because literally, I guess you could say the catalyst for Talking Rock Tours in some ways was Beatrice, the genealogy manager. When literally after I had that initial meeting, about a month and a half later, she did all the work, right? You got the family tree in front of you, and then basically broke it down like, you're related to the current president, Audrey, you're related to me, you see who you're related to. And as I was about to walk out the door, like, thank you very much for your hard work, know, and she called my name, and I turned around and she's like, you know what? You need to do more, because look who you are.
I love
right?
that.
You look European, but don't let that be kind of that imposter syndrome, right? Like, do something important for the Métis Nation. And of course, I was working in the oil sands. It was like, yeah, at that time, I'm making good money, supporting my family, but it's just something I always remember now with this journey with Talking Rock Tours.
I like that. Kendra, you're a non-Indigenous woman married into a Métis family, and so building this business, The Woods, which obviously features a variety of experiences like you laid out, trap lining and bushcrafts. Can you talk about your own experience learning more about Métis culture as your family's bringing this vision to life with you participating?
Yeah, you bet. Growing up, my family was at the core of our beliefs and values. So family is so important from an early age for me. But my mother-in-law, Wendy, she started on her journey with her business and learning her culture more in depth and her family history back in 2010. And being a part of that, helping her, look up some of the archives and try to find some of the different family tree with her, it just kind of lit a fire in my soul. Fast forward to, just sort of recently having 2 young boys, I just feel it's super important to know that history and be able to share it with them and their culture. And, it all combines together, being outdoors and just wanting to be on the land and in nature and learn about some of those things. It's part of the Indigenous culture, but it's also part of who I am, that I've always been.
Matricia, this is, as a family, a couple of years ago, we had a chance to be on the Spirit Island boat tour. I don't know. I'm sure you're familiar with it at Moline Lake, and just obviously an incredible experience. I would recommend it to anybody. But I will acknowledge that I was unaware of the extent of the significance of Spirit Island and that area, that surrounding area, that territory for like millennia. To Indigenous people for many different reasons. And I don't remember her name, but I should credit whoever the tour guide was on that boat, because she was actually I think she held this boat, we were captivated on the edge of our seats as she was telling these stories and reiterating the significance of Spirit Island before we reached it. And it just kind of blew our minds. And I guess that's like one example of so many that serves as a reminder of the significance of the land that, we now call Canada, and a very young nation, relatively speaking, that many people, of course, have called home for time immemorial. How does that apply to your perspective with Warrior Women and the work that you do when you're taking people in and around Jasper National Park?
Yeah, so the rock is called Ossini, and the mountains are called Wachi. So the people that were in the Sinawachi-Winawak are the Rocky Mountain people. And I think, in a way, as sort of somebody from Sturgeon Lake Cree Nation, I chose to live in Jasper, so I'm not actually from Jasper, but I do have ties very deep in Alberta. I've never lived anywhere but. And Jasper is unique in the fact that, we're living in a mountain range and basically a prairie province. And 21 million people a year come there. And Moline is one of those, Moline Boat Tours is one of those things that still has made, a resurgence after the fire. So visiting Jasper is a little bit different than it was before, but it's no less beautiful than it was.
I think it's more beautiful.
Yeah.
To be honest, like we were we went snowboarding at Marmot Basin this winter, and it was like, you're taking that, whatever that road's called, that goes up to the ski hill, and it's quite shocking. When you get a sense of how big that fire was and the magnitude of it, how close it came to, obviously it took down parts of the town, but it's just like you can see the cut line. It was amazing. But there's also this, like, I don't know if I describe it as reverence or awe or something, just seeing it all and understanding that 20 years from now, there will be 15-foot trees back there and it will bounce back and it's part of nature. Just to me, it's like this land has been around and people have been on this land for so very long. And this is not to take away from the huge impacts of this economically, sociologically, mentally, and otherwise on people. But it's like the land and the people will recover.
It's interesting because this month is June and it's the Otaheman Tipisquel Pisik. It's the heartberry, it's the strawberry moon. And the strawberry moon reminds us, it reminds us that Mother Nature, regardless of what we've done in the past, shows us how beautiful it is to be sweet and not bitter. And even though there's this, big scar on the land from the fire, Mother Earth still provides her abundance. She still shows us how beautiful it is to be sweet with this tiny little berry. And I think that spring was just a really great time of renewal for Jasper people. It reminded us that, that we're moving forward. And but that there's lessons to be learned in the past, and this sense of renewal and resurgence and rebuild is a story that we carry close to our hearts moving forward.
So people can check out warriorwomen.ca. We've as a family have participated in several of your events, including that fireside chat. I know that happened at Takara Lodge and they were impacted. Are you still able to do that there? Are you still working there with them?
No, Takara Lodge unfortunately has suffered too much damage. I'm now at Pine Bungalows, so that it's been interesting this year. A lot of things have been changed. Most of the businesses have learned how to be really flexible. There's places and spaces that I existed before that are no longer available, and I've had to sort of reinvent the places and spaces that I produce in now. But Jasper is different, but it's no less beautiful than it was before. And even though we're in a relaunch and a rebuild, Jasper's still open for visitors. We rely on visitors. We're a community that relies on the visitor economy. Things might be different, but they're no less. It's definitely worth your while, and you can feel good about your economic reconciliation coming to Jasper because the money that you're spending really helps us rebuild.
100%. We always we're in love with Jasper. This show is in love with Jasper.
Yeah.
Every Wednesday we talk about our Jasper memories, and we've referenced you many times. And for people that don't know, you're a bit of an icon out there. But I'm just so grateful to see like your beading classes. I know. By the way, I hope you don't mind me. I think you should charge more. I'm looking at your website. I think you should charge more because I've been part of these and they're so wonderful. And I don't know if you'd remember, because I know you work with a lot of people, but like our young son Wyatt was just in awe at what you were doing. And it's amazing. Do you have like a sort of a recurring bit of feedback, whether it's people that are visiting from halfway around the world or somewhere else in Canada that resonates with you?
Yeah, there is a recurring theme. One, it's surprise, and two, it's gratitude.
Yeah.
And so people aren't expecting to come to an experience that's, an hour and a half long and be emotionally changed, spiritually changed. And that gratitude that I see out of people, every visitor is looking for a transformational experience, even if they don't think they are. And they're often surprised when they're affected that way. And I had a gentleman come up to me the other day, and he was like, I knew you were coming to speak tonight, and I was kind of tired, and I really didn't want to come. And he said, and I absolutely loved it.
Aw.
Yeah, so it's changing. I mean, my tagline is, indigenizing people one drumbeat at a time. But that really is true.
I love how you say that. Keith, do you have like a story that you love to tell? I mean, the funny thing is, can I give the audience some insight? I hope you don't mind this, but you're like you're a real wisecracker. Did you guys notice that from the minute we walked in, you're like wisecracks, word plays, puns, dad jokes, and then here you've just really like settled in and become serious. But you're like, it's obvious to me. You made like 5 geology jokes before we had even started the show. Your passion is obvious for your discipline and your expertise. Is there a story you love to tell that ties into Indigenous history?
Well, my tagline is science for the mind, stories from the heart, history of the land. Because again, that holistic history you don't learn in school. I have that blessing, that opportunity to educate fellow educators as well as businesses, basically schools, and of course Indigenous, well, I should say more domestic and international travelers. So just having that opportunity to kind of reconnect with the land and recharge your spirit, and at the same time learn some Indigenous languages, right? With, again, when you travel abroad, I always want to know how to say, hello and thank you. So just giving people that opportunity, right? And doing a tobacco offering, right? Just allowing people to have that connection to Indigenous culture. And when you think right at the get-go, I make everyone an honorary Métis. So they don't have the sash that I have from Batoche, right? Like where I carry my 4th great grandfather. But you can see that's part of the Indigenous experience, right? It's not someone who memorizes their bit, right? A cookie cutter experience with a herd of, passengers type of thing, right? It's always an intimate type of experience where we basically welcome them into our culture and create this mini kind of community that literally they're not going to remember everything that we teach them, but those nuggets will last, right? Because on my tours, I kind of say that I'm just the little pebble in the pond, but you are that ripple of change, because when you tell family, friends, colleagues, that impact carries. And we don't have like the big marketing budget, so we really rely on these intimate, memorable experiences that they are now our, advocates, right? Our allies, and they share it with the world.
Yeah, I should remind this audience that all 3 of you entrepreneurs are all members of Indigenous Tourism Alberta. Do you find, Kendra, I would imagine you have conversations with the people that frequent your business and your customers or clients or visitors from all around the world. Do you find that more and more people are specifically seeking Indigenous tourism opportunities, like they're intentionally investing in these Indigenous experiences?
Yeah, I think so. I think we have had so many wonderful travelers through our site, and a lot of people, we always start off at the trading post, and we always give them that like family tour. So it's one of us owners touring the property and the land, and we start in that trading post to show the culture and to show the different pieces that we have. A lot of the handmade fur garments that Wendy makes come right from some of the fur-bearing animals right on our land. So we have a story to tell, and even if people weren't seeking it from the get-go when they made that booking, they're just so amazed and in awe to be able to see that culture and be a part of it and learn more. And we have so many repeat customers coming back that are like eager to take a course or to take a workshop or have an elder interaction and become more hands-on with it. So it's really great to see.
I love it. We love to, as a sort of a tradition of our own, wrap our Real Talk Roundtables with just kind of a call to action or something to think about. Give each guest an opportunity to put something in front of the audience to walk with this weekend. I'll note also on July 1st, many people will recognize Canada Day. I know that that's an added layer for a lot of folks that are commenting on or reflecting on Indigenous history in what is now Canada. Keith, why don't we start with you and we'll go around the table. Something to leave the audience with, something to think about this weekend.
Well, for myself, being based in Amiskwaci, Waskagan, Beaver Hills House, known today as Edmonton, kind of a really cool fun fact about, the ribbon of green, as we know as the Edmonton River Valley, is we have such an amazing connection to the past ever since the last ice age. When you think at the height of it, 22,000 years ago, it was almost a kilometer and a half of ice that came from the east, from the Laurentide ice sheet. And when that ice, and when you think to kind of give that realism, if you go to the River Valley next time, basically stack 28 Walter Dale bridges on top of each other to give that visual perspective. And then when you think when the last ice age kind of dissipated and Glacial Lake Edmonton drained, the people, like the animals return and then the people return. And those layers of occupation for over 10,000 years are hiding in plain sight. So that kind of goosebump moment for your listeners, and again, to be that extra layer of pride for as being an Edmontonian and Albertan and Canadian, that we have a place in the heart of Edmonton that's double the age of the oldest pyramid. So it should be like mic drop, wow, right? Because, to me, it should be...
That's kind of hitting me in waves.
Yeah, like it should be a UNESCO World Heritage Site, but you can see we're on this journey with the mighty North Saskatchewan River being recently acknowledged as a heritage river. Like, what the heck, right? Why did it take so long? It's the highway of the fur trade that connects Fort Edmonton to, literally Fort Garry, as we know, as present-day Winnipeg. But then we're also in the process of one of Canada's urban national parks, and at the heart of it should be literally the Rossdale community, the Ross Flats, the ancient burial ground, the Fort Edmonton Cemetery, Alberta's first Catholic and Methodist cemeteries. Everybody was buried together, and you can see how much we can learn from the past. Because, when you think of being... many of us are members of social media kind of communities, but it's not a true community. When you think back in the past, how everybody lived together, everybody counted on each other, and everybody helped each other. Right? We kind of live in a silo, but it's just, you can see by being on the land and recharging your spirit and connecting to these special places, right, really should be a bit of a wake-up call, and also that hope that we need in the world.
For audience members that are maybe unfamiliar with that Rossdale area, there's that power plant, which is obviously a historically protected building. There's been a lot of talk about turning that or transforming that into obviously a tourism opportunity, a community development opportunity, obviously a commercial opportunity. People point to like the Forks in Winnipeg as an example, Granville Island in Vancouver as an example. There was talk about a gondola that may move from Old Strathcona, span the North Saskatchewan, and have a big unloading station in that Rossdale area. It was met with great protests and opposition by people based in large part on the significance of that territory. Because you reference it specifically, I have to ask what you think, if anything, should happen in that part of the city.
Well, I'd love to take this opportunity because I kind of share it to my audience when I do my River Valley experiences. I actually have one right after this. And it's very special when you have Indigenous guests on the land. And what I would really like to envision, because I'm not sure, Ryan, if you've been to the Indigenous Art Park, it was Mackenzie that actually told me about it.
Really?
Which was like a year after it was open, because it's really tucked away, right? It's in the back 40 of River Lot 11, like John Walter's River Lot 9, and then Lawrence Garneau, right? We all know about the Garneau neighborhood, but many people don't realize that the Garneau family being a Métis family, being on the other side. But when you think the size of River Lot 11, they should have many Indigenous artists featured in the entire river lot that connects to the burial ground. So literally the north to the south on both sides, and literally use the Rossdale power plant as an Indigenous museum with maybe, kind of that cafe. And then on the side of the Rossdale power plant, because it's sitting on basically Fort Edmonton number 4 from 1813 to 1830 is really at the foundation. So many people think the Art Deco old power plant, like, oh, cool old building, but what lies beneath it. And it's even more history, that connection to the fur trade. But you can see by having, literally an image, and it's kind of nice to kind of share this on such a public forum. But just think, having a group of Indigenous artists that paint like the Laurentide ice sheet margin with teepee villages, with a fort, to the Métis river cart kind of caravan from basically present-day Winnipeg out west, and then a modern-day city. So literally on the side of the power plant, with one image, you're literally showcasing the last 10,000 years. And at the foreground, you're connecting the burial ground to the current Indigenous Art Park with over a dozen First Nations, as well as the Métis Nation called Miskwichi Waskagan home. And to think having National Indigenous Peoples Day there, with the drumming returning in the River Valley, with all the dancers, the artists, like it would just be in a more spectacle or more, like out of this world kind of thing, because I love the Forks and they're doing it very well there. And it's almost like, Edmontonians need to take a field trip to go there and literally do what they do there, but for Edmonton. And again, that progression of that UNESCO World Heritage Site that I'd like to see one day.
I mean this as a compliment. The more you talk, the more I realize I don't know. But I'm learning a ton from you, and it's obvious, I think, why your business is gaining acclaim. Again, that's TalkingRockTours.com. Kendra, something to leave this audience with.
Yeah, I think I would just tell everybody to explore Alberta, and we have so many great entrepreneurs and experiences out there, and everybody has their own story to tell. So go and explore. You don't have to go very far, and there's some incredible things to learn and see.
I love it. People can check out atthewoods.ca. And Matricia, my friend, last word to you for now.
Well, I'm going to build on what Kendra said about, you can go to the Indigenous Tourism of Alberta website. They have a great interactive map that shows all different kind of ways to reconcile. You can do it while you're on holidays, which is amazing. But I'm going to end with where we started, which is the land acknowledgement, because the three of us really work in that particular sphere. Not only does Talking Rock, literally talks about the rock, but you're a geologist. You're in the land. Talking about it. Kendra, you're on the land. You're doing experiences in the woods, literally. And I'm in the Rockies. And so that land acknowledgement really, somebody asked me the other day, Indigenous people are so tied, to nature. And I said, we're not tied to nature. We are nature. We're part of it. There's no separation from it. And so when we talk about land acknowledgements, you're really not just acknowledging the land, but you're acknowledging the people. And so when you're not acknowledging the land, you're not acknowledging the people. And that's really where, the difference lies. So I'll leave it with that.
I think that's an amazing place to leave it. Thank you. We didn't even recognize that you drove 4 hours this morning to be here with us. We should also recognize that before we sign off.
Yeah.
I'll put this on the audience's radar as well if you want to check out the bigger picture. As Matricia was just describing it, destinationindigenous.ca is a great place to start. And of course, we've mentioned everyone's site, but you can check out warriorwomen.ca. That's Matricia Bauer, joined by Kendra Dudzic and Lieutenant Navy Keith Diakiw. Thank you for this. Thank you for helping us better understand Indigenous history. Thank you for in many cases, including what you're talking about right here in the capital city of the province, putting some things on our radar that I guarantee most people are not aware of. Fascinating stuff. Mission accomplished.
Right.
Thanks,
Kichi Marcy.
Thank you. Have a great weekend.
You bet. Thank you.
These conversations here on Real Talk happen with the support of partners like our friends at California Closets of Canada. And if this weekend means that you guys are going to be getting decluttered, you're going to start your summer with an organizational effort, then you're going to want to start at californiaclosets.ca with a free consultation. That's where it all starts. A consultation with a designer that can take your vision, understand the space that they're going to be working with, the budget that you're working with. They can work with all kinds of budgets, everybody. And of course, then the work begins. These installations are designed and built right here in Alberta, and they're guaranteed for life. Whether it's your entryway, your mudroom, your laundry room, maybe the third or second bedroom that's doubling as a home office, Murphy bed maybe. California Closets will do it like nobody else. Proudly serving Alberta, BC, Ontario, Quebec. They're operating design showrooms that are more inviting than you might expect. We've experienced it firsthand, and that's why we so proudly recommend California Closets at californiaclosets.ca. If you're looking for a job that you can really get excited about, maybe you're, underemployed, or maybe you're just unhappy with where you're working right now, Kubi is hiring with integrated renewable solutions. Canada's fastest growing solar company has the "We're Hiring" sign out all the time. Go to kubi.ca. That's kuby.ca. Click on solar and then careers, and that's where you can find the listings. They're always looking for team members in Alberta, BC, in particular right now, Edmonton, Calgary, Kamloops, and Lethbridge. Their current openings are posted, including sales, installation. They've oftentimes got opportunities for engineers, designers, you name it. It's happening at Kubi. And of course, don't forget, Kubi proudly presenting Positive Reflections, the first episode of every week right here on Real Talk. Hey, Johnny, did you see my Instagram the other day? I just threw this up here.
I never look at your account.
Follow me. Johnny!
I'm kidding.
I'm actually realizing I'm talking to a plant-based fella about throwing meat on the grill. It was
Nice tee-up.
Why did I do that? Why did I do that? Because it's live, baby. Check out my Instagram story. Oh, no, wait. This is going to take us to our live broadcast. That's not going to work. I just realized right now for the very first time I can't do this.
Okay, so here, I'm going to teach you about social media. Hit Reels.
Yes. No, it's not a reel. It's a story.
So go to your side there. Go to More.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Uh-huh. Okay. I should have rehearsed this ahead of time.
More.
This is what we're going to do. We're going to cut this out of the podcast, and
Yeah,
nobody's
we
even
will.
going to know what happened. This is a benefit for those of you on YouTube. Anyway, hey, check out my Instagram, everybody. But if you go and click on my Instagram story, you're going to see me throwing a burger on the grill for the very first time. It is the most pristine-looking grill you've ever seen in your life. Not anymore. Not that we've crushed a couple of burgers from there, but boy, what an experience it was firing up that Broil King barbecue that we picked up at You Need a Barbecue. Our family needed one for a while, and so that's when I went to see Russell and Brian and the team, and I told them exactly what we're going to use it for, how many people we typically cook for, let them know we're running propane instead of natural gas. Probably not the greatest decision, quite frankly. Always swapping out the tanks, you know what I mean? A bit of a pain in the ass there, but still, they got us all set up with the perfect fit. Russell's on my radar because I actually checked out one of his barbecue classes a few years ago and learned amazing things, in particular about brisket, but he'll teach you whatever you need. Chicken thighs, steaks, prime rib, whatever it is. Russell does it. He's actually an award-winning pit master. You can find all the details at youneedabbq.com. That's youneedabarbecue.com. I don't have to tell you where I got the beef to throw on the grill. Everybody already knows. Everybody knows, as the voice of Friesen Brothers, our family is so proud to feed ourselves and our guests at Backyard Barbecues with Alberta proteins from Friesen Brothers. You can see them online at friesen.com. They're real butchers at their 16 different locations. Have a ton of options for you, including bison, by the way. We also love their Ivan's sausages, but it was their preformed, the burgers, their butchers and their team in the butcher shop. They do those burger patties themselves, and man, oh man, we don't go with the frozen stuff. We go with the fresh stuff from Friesen Brothers. I highly recommend it. Don't take my word from it. Take 3-year-old Noah's. He crushed his last night. Absolutely loved it. Friesen Brothers celebrating 70 years this year as Alberta grown and Alberta owned. And a shout out to our friends at UCAN Youth Services. This is a partnership that we're just so proud of because I personally believe in what they're doing. I've forged a relationship with this team, starting with the incredible Kyle Dubé, who had such an impact on this organization right up until his unexpected passing just over a year ago. You can read about Kyle's legacy on the website ucan.ca and find out how this remarkable organization is continuing to operate and growing in his memory. A relentless pursuit of opportunity for young people who are encountering barriers in employment, barriers in everyday life, oftentimes finding themselves in trouble with the law. Kyle always saw the potential in every young person, 12 to 24, that walked through those doors, and they're continuing that legacy to this day. In memory of Kyle Dubé, we encourage you to consider a donation to UCAN Youth Services at ucan.ca.
Oh, I miss that guy.
Man, he was,
A bright light.
He sure was, and his family had dealt with tragedy. Like longtime Real Talkers, regular audience members will remember that Kyle came in here to talk about his son Luke's passing. Luke died by suicide, and Kyle was on talking about it with me, and that was shortly before, number one, Kyle's death, and number two, my good friend's death. by suicide. And so that interview and that conversation that we had with Kyle, kind of like there were like added layers to it. And to be quite honest, just a bit of a peek behind the curtain. That's really what, I mean, I would say that we were already keen on supporting UCAN, but when all of that stuff went down, and when we saw how that organization was continuing to rally, how the Dubé family was rallying and saw the community support behind them, that's when we were like, we're partnering with this group no matter what. So I just want to thank Real Talkers every once in a while. Some of you will send us a message privately letting us know that you've connected with UCAN or that you're doing work with them or you've made a donation, or some of you, a couple of you have written in and said that you're including them in your estate planning, which is amazing. And we just want to say how much we appreciate that. That's real stuff. Like, we talk here about community. What about Keith? Just talking about what is community, what isn't community. That to us represents community, and we see it every day in our chat. We wanted to get to, before we get to the Flamethrower today, and some of you are all kinds of fired up, we did have a lot of response to our Infill conversation. I don't know if you saw this coming or not. I was pretty sure it would light a fire under people, because once you start talking about like the composition of neighborhoods, you start talking about people's, in many cases, in most cases, their primary investment, their home, and then you talk to other folks that would love to get into a home but can't afford it, or they're experiencing, the affordability and or the housing crunch, that sort of thing. The issue becomes a big one. But why don't we tee up that short you put together just to kind of put this on people's radar? As a reminder, if you didn't check out this episode, here's the context in 2 sentences. Edmonton mayoral candidate Tim Cartmel says it's time to put a moratorium on infill development until the city can better figure it out. Mayoral contender Andrew Knack says no way, full steam ahead. A moratorium is not the answer. We check in with Real Talker Travis Watt about his own experience, and of course that's what kick-started the conversation.
There are so many issues in terms of what's going up. It's an older neighborhood, but we have a lot of new families moving in. The school is fuller than ever. We bought a bungalow here. It was our first home after we got married. We saved up, we used our RSPs, and we used a little bit of inheritance money to build our dream home on the exact same lot. We love this neighborhood. I chose this lot for a reason. I invested my life savings to live here for a reason. 2 weeks after we moved into our dream home, the builder next door came and chatted with me and explained that they would be building an 8-plex next door. I think as homeowners and people investing that kind of money, you do have a right to know where you're going to live. And I don't think that's too much to ask.
Somebody said
there are so many issues in terms of what's going up. It's an older neighborhood, but we have a lot of new families moving in. The school is fuller than ever. We bought a bungalow here. It was our first home after we got married. We saved up, we used our RSPs, and we used a little bit of inheritance money to build our dream home on the exact same lot. We love this neighborhood. I chose this lot for a reason. I invested my life savings to live here for a reason. 2 weeks after we moved into our dream home, the builder next door came and chatted with me and explained that they would be building an 8-plex next door. I think as homeowners and people investing that kind of money, you do have a right to know where you're going to live. And I don't think that's too much to ask.
Somebody says, this guy is a total NIMBY, not in my backyard. Everybody wants, affordable high-density housing unless it's in their neighborhood.
I've literally walked through this neighborhood with Andrew Knack and shown him an 8-plex on a corner lot. It looks beautiful. We actually think this is great. We aren't saying not in my backyard. I don't think these people would be speaking the same way if it was happening to them after making the biggest investment in their lives.
So that has gleaned like hundreds of comments, and we wanted to get to some of these and kind of keep this conversation going. This all ahead of a public hearing that's basically it's going down on June 30th, so it's like coming right up, obviously. And J.K. Rogie in our Instagram, you can follow us at Real Talk RJ, says this does need a pause. Says infill with no thought or oversight isn't good. I should note we heard from a ton of people that were sort of echoing the concerns that Travis shared about like parking availability, about some of these 8-plexes with like 8 different garbage bins behind. They said like just logistically, it's not working. Dr. Shazma Mathani, who you've heard on this show many times, checks in, leaving a comment on our Instagram post. Bit of a different context for the doctor, but she says there's so many important points that are made by Travis. She said this is not NIMBY. She says, number one, rental costs for these multiplexes are not affordable. Number two, there's no plan for parking capacity. 3, no plan for school capacity. That's another one. And she says, and 4, there's no plan for increased traffic and the safety of children. Dr. Mathani says densification is absolutely important, but it needs to be done thoughtfully, and this isn't that. CMDUW says the math is simple. If you provide sufficient supply that keeps up with demand, pricing generally stays in check. Edmonton's lucky to have kept up with demand, which is why we have some of the most affordable housing in the country. But anybody who thinks that it'd be smart to stop infill, which produces like 30% of our housing supply, to study what's already been studied for decades, shouldn't be surprised when prices spike, especially given the high population growth we're experiencing. Should there be tweaks, amendments to existing land use policies? Yes, but a full-on moratorium, absolutely the worst idea. Grandy Saunders says, nothing wrong with pressing pause so a revisit can be done. If pause was pressed on many other city-approved items, this city and council will be much better off. All projects, no matter the scope, should always have a checkpoint or a pause in place. I'm not sure, generally speaking, if I agree with that. Now it's Jespo talking. I think, number one, projects almost always get more expensive the longer you wait. So I wouldn't say that all projects should have a checkpoint or a pause in place. Checkpoints, for sure. There should be accountability and timelines. But pauses, I'm not sure. I would also say for people that have invested in properties, they've leveled the existing structure, and now they're waiting to build a moratorium, depending on how it would roll out. And by the way, it's not going to roll out. It's not going to pass on the public hearing. It's a political move by Tim Cartmel, but still, I'm not sure how you'd feel if you were one of those investors. Not saying everybody's going to feel sorry for the developers, many of whom are not even from Edmonton, if that's relevant to you. There's a million angles on this. It feels like every sentence I say, I bring up another point on this. Bunny Smash says, this person, Travis, your guest, bought a bungalow, tore it down, and put up a brand new single-family home. Would they be just as upset if a massive single-family home went up next to them? Same size as that multifamily home that was put up? Says that sounds like infill for me, but not for others. We also got some emails. Kaila wrote into talk@ryanjespersen.com, says, Jespo, I listened to your episode with Travis Watt. On Infill, I have a strong opinion. I am in a high-earning profession where many of my colleagues have investment properties. I also have friends who live in an infill that they built themselves near Alberta Avenue. For those of you outside of Edmonton, there's 118th Avenue north of downtown, kind of like the original area of the Trans-Canada Highway, not the Trans-Canada, but like a main thoroughfare through Edmonton, like way back in the day. Now a neighborhood that's experiencing some revitalization. How do I put this? And it's got some really wonderful grassroots, independently owned businesses, but there's still quite a bit of work to be done. Is that a fair assessment? I hope so. Kaila says, all of that being said, I also don't own my home. I happen to be a renter myself. I'm not a normal renter because I can afford a higher rent than most and quite comfortably. But when I was recently looking for a new rental house, I was struck by the proliferation of these multi-unit infills. And after going through the process and talking to a bunch of different people, I don't think this is the solution. She says, number one, I think that they're an eyesore. There's no outdoor space. There's not enough parking for the people who'd be living in them. There's no way I would describe them as affordable. She says most of the ones I looked at were around like $1,200 a month plus utilities for 575 square feet in a basement without parking, or $2,000 a month plus utilities for 1,100 square feet, 3-bedroom upper level with a single garage. I don't know who anybody would describe 2,000 plus as affordable every month. If you add that up, she says for the entire unit, that's like $10,000 in rent collected every month. As far as I'm concerned, developers and owners are maximizing profit. She says, I don't blame them, I suppose, but at the expense of regular people who are looking for somewhere reasonable to live at a price they can afford. Given how many of them are currently on the rental market, I also think we might be building more than there's a market for. I don't think so. She says, I'm all for densifying our population, but only if it actually makes things better, not just to line the pockets of developers without really solving any problems. She says, I do agree with Travis that fourplexes seem to be a better fit. They fit better in the neighborhoods. The rents are only like a few $100s more without feeling like you're being crammed in like sardines, maybe still a bit of a yard and a double garage. She says, just food for thought. That's from Kaila. So engaged Real Talkers checking in from across the board. It's kind of funny, though. We know that, like, for audience members that'll listen in Vancouver, hearing that, like, someone's getting 575 square feet for $1,200 a month is actually, like, a pretty sweet deal. You know what I mean? Like, people in Vancouver, it's like, I don't know how anybody affords to live out there. It's like $3,000 a month for that same sort of a size. Mm-hmm. Kyle also wrote in. He says, as a fellow downtowner, he says, I actually look over at Mercer Warehouse. What are you trying to creep us out, Kyle? I'm just kidding. He says downtown needs help, and some on councillor standing in the way. He says, yeah, there are some things that the city can't control, like when and where private development projects are built. I mean, they can control it. He says, but they sure do have some influence. He says, I like your Wednesday guest, Travis, are fine with some infill development, but 8plexes seem a little bit wild for suburban redevelopment. He says, but I'd like to focus on downtown. With the probable passing of Bill C-5, this is that nation building projects bill. That's the colloquial name. We talked about that with Supriya Dwivedi in our most recent episode. Make sure you check it out. He says, I do think that, you know, in the development funds that are happening, now is the time to get building, especially with public-private partnerships, the P3s, all the things right now. Now's the time to build this event center to start the quarters. Oh man, these are some deep pulls. He says finish station lands behind Epcot Tower, make progress in Blatchford, that's the old municipal airport. Push Daryl Cates to start Ice District Phase 2, help kickstart the tower redevelopments on Jasper. You need more people living and working downtown, and the city needs to get out of the way. He says we've lost billions in development projects like the Massey Harris Ferguson redevelopment. And when's the last time you heard about that 80-floor Aldrich Tower next to the convention center? Kyle, personally, I spoke to the Aldrich guys like a month ago. Not totally dead, but it's not going to be 80 stories, not even close. He says, I think there's a lot that Edmonton can take from other North American cities, like those 120 unpermitted lots. Either push them to start redevelopment or use eminent domain to turn some into green space. Andrew Nax talked about taxing them, like the gravel front parking lot stuff, right? Taxing them more heavily. He says bring the city into making public-owned parking garages above ground and underground. Add parkades at all park and ride LRTs. Make it easier for people to get downtown however they want to. I love the vision, Kyle. You're talking about like $10 billion in development, and I love it. He says Edmonton has the chance to build, bringing in new business, new residences, and if we really are heading into a recession, what a better way to spur growth and better the city. That from Kyle. I happened to be down at City Hall yesterday just participating as a citizen in that public hearing on this extension of the Community Revitalization Levy, the CRL. They're looking to extend it for like another 10 years. Basically, like what this does, and I'm not like a city planner, and I'm definitely not a tax accountant or anything like that, or a strategist, but the CRL basically allows a city to like borrow against future property tax revenues to fund development right now. And it's the CRL has worked baked into the arena deal, contributing to more than $2.5 billion in development downtown. And it's really worked to revitalize downtown. You're obviously going to have the detractors. You're going to have the supporters. I happen to be supportive of the CRL and the extension of it. And I really hope that this council votes to extend it. This should be on folks' radar. The reason I went to speak, I think is in large part because of some of the narrative around this. The city and the province, they've reached this deal, and it's hundreds of millions of dollars of investment. It includes provincial funding for like tearing down the old Coliseum, right? The old Rexall Place, which is going to be like $90 million. I have no idea why it is that much, but it is. So the province is putting money forward for that. They're also putting money for a lot of housing. I mean, there's a ton baked into the deal. But the most contentious part of it is this event park that would be owned by the city. It's right here in Ice District, but it would be operated by Oilers Entertainment Group. And some of the narrative around this, including from Andrew Knack and other councillors that are opposing this, Michael Jans, is that they don't want to sign a deal. They're describing it as a bad deal because it's going to line the pockets of a billionaire. And what's really interesting is I was sitting there waiting to speak. You get 5 minutes to address city council. I talked about Relay, like our company's investment in downtown. We talked about some of the vibrancy that we've seen downtown at these public spaces, right? Including, Johnny, where you were DJing all through the Cup run. Mm-hmm. Like incredible to see thousands of people down there congregating and to see the spin-off. Our friends at the Edmonton Chamber of Commerce, what was it, $266 million, I think they said.
Yeah,
that people invested into downtown through the playoff run. Obviously, a city's economy and a downtown economy doesn't want to like live and die based on the fortunes of a hockey team. But in a city like Edmonton, it's obviously relevant. Here's the deal, though. The concern is, and Kaila Anderson from Build Edmonton Metro, she's the CEO there. You probably remember she was on a Real Talk Roundtable with us just a couple of weeks ago, talking about city planning and building and vision and fascinating stuff, repping her Oilers jacket through the roundtable. But Kaila basically said her concern, and I share this concern, is that if city council, this city council, the current one, says no to this deal and votes down this deal based on the fact that part of the deal involves this collaboration with Oilers Entertainment Group on this fan park, the concern is that the deal writ large, the whole thing's going to fall apart. Hundreds of millions of dollars to the city of Edmonton. So that's an interesting story to keep an eye on, and it kind of ties into what Kyle's talking about in his email.
I don't think there's any chance it'll fall apart. I just think it's always contentious when you have I work with OEG, so this is an issue where like I'm treading lightly, but I do have an opinion on it, which is like, which sports conglomerate or team or company isn't owned by a billionaire? I mean, or isn't owned by someone who was rich and then became richer. That's what sports is, especially in the Big Four: football, hockey, basketball, but here in Canada, especially hockey. But, you know, when I see people like Andrew Knack, and I think Nenshi commented on this as well, I will say it's a bit funny to see Andrew Knack posting he's at the game during the playoffs and the whole crowd singing Pink Pony Club and him in the mosh pit and Nenshi's in the mosh pit. So these guys are there. They're experiencing these amazing places that we're calling destinations for people to come to Edmonton, especially during the playoffs, and go to and see the attractions. And for me, I just hope, I agree there should be discussion. Every time we're taking money out of one bucket and putting it into another, hey, where's the rest of the money for that bucket? If we're putting it into this, yes, let's also make sure we're building, you know, places for people who are experiencing houselessness and drug addiction and all these, like, obviously let's not just put it into places where people can go and let's be honest, buy expensive beer and hot dogs, right?
Yeah.
But at the same time, like, let's just keep the discussion going every time we have something like this come up, because opinions are never going to be all on one side. But as far as me, I think, I mean, the entire city rallies behind this hockey team. To say that, you know, hockey isn't just the basis of Edmonton. Well, it kind of is. I mean, this team is kind of the heart and soul of the city. And when you're talking about $250 million bringing in a year outside of what it makes
not
normal.
A year, just through the playoff
This
run.
is just the playoffs. This isn't the
and that's
rest
not for
of
the Oilers.
Yeah, exactly.
That's for bar, restaurant owners, hoteliers.
Exactly. That's for the people below us in the studio, the people to the left and right of us. So for me, I think it's a good thing. I think we need to continue, you know, investing in stuff that we know puts money in the pockets of people who are investing in businesses downtown, and they're not all millionaires, definitely. And those people downtown who have these businesses, we just had a panel of them sitting in here this week.
Yeah.
They are happy that these places are bringing 30,000 people on a weekday to come and spend money downtown. But that doesn't mean we just green light and check mark everything.
Of course not.
Let's have discussion. Let's weigh the pros and cons. Right?
Yeah, and as mentioned as well, like Gilles in the chat, powered by Park Power, your friendly local utilities provider at parkpower.ca/realtalk. Gilles says, as a public space, it's a city-owned space, this fan park, as long as there's no fees for the use of the space and a commitment from OEG to program the space during non-hockey times. And that's the thing too, right? It's a city-owned space. It's programmed or run by OEG, but it's something obviously that would be activated year-round as well. They don't just let it sit there. That's not the point. It's actually a really significant development. There is some equity here at Talk, at play in conversations with the province's commitment to Calgary's arena or entertainment district project, whatever they're calling it, and what they're doing in Edmonton as well. But the fact of the matter is like, number one, Edmonton desperately needs the funding for some of these other areas. If you don't get the funding, if these deals collapse, where does it come from? Where does the funding come from? From from your property taxes going up even higher. Yeah. And also, I just want to reiterate that when you're talking about that $266 million, like I shared with them personally, I said, me, not a billionaire, in running a business, like,
hey, me either.
It's obvious. What? It's obvious to Real Talkers, like this space has been built. And if you're a Patreon supporter, or if you've attended some of our like VIP election night watch parties or some of the fun stuff, the space is built to entertain. And there's a whole other area that you don't see on camera.
It's multifaceted.
You kind of see it in Johnny's shot through the GoPro. You can see into our green room where our guests are and everything else.
I call it a podcast Swiss Army knife.
Yes,
you
that's
right. You
right.
could throw a party in here, 10 minutes later you could go live on YouTube.
So you're telling me that like even, and this is just one small, we're like a micro business, like one small business's story. This is just one. And as you mentioned, we're surrounded by other restaurants and other entities that are based on, that thrive on and operate on foot traffic and vibrancy and attendance and people being in this space, is that we use this space to entertain our partners, our clients, our audience members, potential audience members. Like for us, downtown vibrancy is incredibly important.
Sure.
And we invest in a space like this. Some of you earlier in our roundtable, like if you're still listening at this point of the pod, like you heard the fire trucks going by, right? When Matricia's talking, like every single time, I've just come to the point where I've had to just deal with that myself. And it's like studio operators, you would never build a studio with thin 100-year-old glass with emergency, like 2 blocks from the city's #1 fire hall. It's like literally the dumbest place to build a studio with 20-foot high ceilings surrounded by hardwood and brick. This is not a smart audio place, but why are we here? We're here, #1, because it's a baller space, and #2, because we're all about community. We bring people together.
We're in the thick of it.
This is a hub.
Yeah.
We're in the action. And
yeah.
who cares about a little ambient noise from time to time? But there's no point in being in the action. There's no point in investing our dollars as entrepreneurs and and as tax-paying citizens, right? Not getting any handouts. People are always chirping us in the comments. Oh, you're the government. You're on the government dime. We don't get a dollar from any level of government. We are private enterprise here, and for us to invest in coming downtown, we do so in good faith that elected officials like city councilors are going to make deals that are better for the city. And the fact that they're calling this a bad deal just because the Oilers are involved in administering one of the properties, they're calling it a bad deal because it's going to line the pockets of a billionaire and risk the entire deal collapsing, to me is a really risky move. And like I said to council yesterday, with a little less passion, actually, I was a little more measured when I was talking to council, but I was like, what message do you want to send to the thousands of people that either have invested downtown or that you're trying to convince to invest downtown?
Sure.
Right? Downtown vibrancy doesn't happen by accident.
I won't comment on that because I don't know. I honestly don't know what happens behind the scenes, but I would assume if you're booking talent and stuff like that, when there's a bigger company behind it, it's just faster, it's easier, it happens like that. But I also recognize that festivals like Fringe Fest and all these other things, they're fighting to survive, and I love those events as well, run by smaller companies. But what I will say is what you just said, like this room being, and I'll show a picture again, being a party spot, an entertainment place, a place to have meetings, gatherings, round tables like this, and then 10 minutes later go live on YouTube. That's what they're trying to accomplish at Fan Park. So if you think that concert we went to there, one of my favorite bands was retiring. Last show ever, No Effects. Me and you went with my friend Ryan. To set up that stage, lighting, sound, production, porta potties, vendors, it can take 24, 48, sometimes 72 hours to do that. So what Fan Park is trying to do is put these installations in permanently. Maybe not permanently set up with staging and everything, but have more of that stuff in there permanently. Washrooms, lighting, sound, production, power, all this stuff, so that when someone like Shania Twain or somebody books a show, we can quickly go, yes, have this date. And the day before, we're also going to have, a beer festival. And the day before that, we're going to have, whatever you can think of. This space doesn't just have to be about the Oilers. You could literally put a farmer's market there one day and have a rock concert the next day. And then the following day, maybe have an extreme, like a skateboard competition.
Whatever.
And then the next day, you know what I mean?
Festival,
you could go back and forth. And that is good. Think $250 million could turn really quickly into half or $750 or $1 billion. And that is money back into the city. And yes, some of it's going to go to OEG, but man, I can't rag on, you want to rag on Daryl Cates, fine. I'm not going to say anything about Daryl Cates. There's, you can just Google his whole life story. But the people I work with at OEG are hardworking people, man, day to day.
Well, let me also
trying
say,
to bring incredible entertainment to this city every day.
You and I have worked
and they're not
closely with
millionaires.
them. No, not even close. But also, by the way, Daryl Cates is an incredible Canadian success story.
But with every billionaire, people have opinions.
Sure, of course everyone has opinions. Of course there's personal things. Of course there's all the things. But that's like that's not the reason why you blow up a deal. I said to council yesterday when I was talking, and I was getting a bunch of notes from people. I know this. I'm not surprised this audience was also like watching the live stream of that when I was there later. I should have told you. Did I stay on the show yesterday? I was heading over. I can't remember. We wrapped fast. I was boom right out the door. But I said to them, like, some of these councillors want to put this to referendum this fall. But we all know how that's going to work. And referendums, like we talk about a lot of the show right now. Have you seen some of the wild stuff, this Alberta First project or whatever it's called with the province? Yeah. These surveys, they're asking, like, should immigrants to Alberta be denied social services? They're asking about the Alberta police force, the Alberta Police Service, again, provincial police. They're talking again, circling back on an Alberta pension plan 2 years after a survey showed that only 10% of Albertans think that it's a good idea. So this is happening, but the referendum, you know how the referendum is going to be framed on this. It's going to be, do you want the city to move ahead and agree to a deal that's going to line the pockets of a billionaire Daryl Cates. And they wouldn't get away with phrasing it like that.
No, I was just going to say that
go
will
through.
not be on a
There's protocol it's got to go through to get on the ballot, but you know how it's going to be framed.
Sure.
Right? That's how it's going to be framed. And I said to them, I said, well, I am a champion. I think we walk the walk on this every single day, a champion of citizen engagement and citizen involvement. I fear that a referendum on this is going to be counterproductive because it's going to be framed in a way that's basically like, do you support Daryl Cates getting hundreds of millions or not? And then obviously people are going to say no. I think the real life referendum in practice was, like you said, Johnny, and I'm not even talking about the 18,400 that were in the hockey games during the playoffs. How about the 5 per park times 3 parks? There's like 15, 20,000 people down there, plus in the downtown bars, restaurants, and businesses that were down here, bringing their business to downtown, filling the public spaces that currently exist, and there was demand for more. You and I could look out, my office window opens to the street, and we can look out the street and see people lining up at noon for the 4 or 5 p.m. opening of these fan parks. I think they heard Infamous was DJing, and they were just lining up around the block, but people were being turned away every single game. There was demand for more, and so I would just look at that as an indicator from kind of where the public's at on this. I also appreciate, I just want to read this quick, I'll hand it back to you. Scarlett in our live chat says, I want all the good things for Edmonton. She says, I can see the benefits truly, but if it's not going to, and she says, it's not going to fix, and she's right, says it's not going to fix the safety and social disorder or homelessness in downtown Edmonton. Only housing will do that. And Scarlett, you're 100% right. And I was grateful that point was reiterated several times in front of City Council yesterday as well.
Yeah, and Tawny just asking again, I don't know where she's been the whole show. Tawny says, J.I., Johnny Infamous, will the city get any of the revenue from this fan park? Yes, we just talked about it. The city downtown, literally, that $226 million we're talking about was not what the Oilers and OEG made. It was what went into the businesses that surround Ice District and all over downtown. We're talking about, I mean, Panita McBrien, who I hope we can come on here and tell some behind the scenes stuff now that she has left her position. But she was the one who let me know that it was the first time she'd ever seen every hotel room downtown Edmonton pretty much 100% booked during the playoffs.
Yeah.
People were coming in from not just an hour outside of town, 2 hours outside. They were coming in from other provinces to be in this city, to be downtown, to spend money here because we're making it an entertainment destination. Is it ever going to be like Vegas? Maybe one day, I hope before I die. But you know what I mean? Like, we're trying to get people to come here and spend their money, and then we take that money and we build better things, and we build infrastructure. And some of that goes to the businesses that curate the entertainment. Now, if you don't like OEG, fine, but someone else is going to come along and do it.
So, Alberta Girl says this show is fast becoming a lobby for OEG, which is hilarious.
I replied. We lobby for downtown and
I
the
can
city,
speak for
right?
myself.
Yeah.
I think, like, number one, the Oilers just went to Game 6 of the Stanley Cup Finals, so I'm not going to apologize for that. Number two, for 7 years, I was the in-game host of the Edmonton Oilers, and this guy's the former DJ of the Edmonton Oilers and still works with them. So we're excited about it. We're enthusiastic about it, but more than anything, what we're a lobby for is continued investment in downtown where we live and work. And I just think that I'm looking for good deals, of course, for the city, good deals for taxpayers, good deals for the future of industry and commerce. And we got to look at this. Like, I think a lot of people, in the same way, like I've said this on the show many times, I don't care if some people don't like it or it makes them uncomfortable. I don't give a fuck, quite frankly. Like, profit is not a dirty word. Private investment is not bad. Developers are not inherently bad. Cities die on the vine. Neighborhoods dwindle and die. Schools close without investment, without private capital, without families choosing to live and work and play somewhere. And there's thought behind it, right? Like, I'm not getting paid by OEG to support the extension of the CRL. I'm taking a look at what the CRL has accomplished around here. It convinced us to move down here. Like, if there was no rink across the street, and if there weren't towers going up on 104th, et cetera, do you think that we would sink X amount of dollars into building a studio down here to look at like the Baccarat casino and parking lots? Like, really?
Yeah.
Not a chance.
And I honestly don't hold back on this show. I honestly, I'm probably surprised I still work alongside OEG because
you don't have to keep saying that.
No, but I'm saying I'm critical of them sometimes when I think a decision is made that doesn't serve the public. And in this situation, I've looked at it and I'm like, this isn't like someone scooping in and taking advantage. We're trying to add to the culture, community, and yes, profits of downtown. And all I hear from people is how they want downtown to be better, and they want this, and they want that, and they want the other thing. But like, you need people to come here and spend money and want to be downtown to be able to invest more in it and make it more livable, workable, entertaining. And so any chance to do that, to boost downtown, I'm usually behind it. That doesn't mean I immediately say everything's a go. I look at things. I looked at this issue all day yesterday because I was like, why are people so pissed off about it in certain sects? And I understand their opinions, and I think we should keep that dialogue open. And every time we make a major investment or change a part of downtown, especially the groundwork, like change the whole structure of it, we got to talk about it for weeks and months before we do it.
Yeah, for sure. And we welcome critics. We welcome you calling us to the carpet. That's fine. John in our live chat. John, welcome. Good to see you here. Says, I drove behind Rogers Place and the Royal Alberta Museum. Says the horrid amount of people that are desperate for homes and health, and you guys are championing billionaires and millionaire players. What the fuck? Fix that first. Number one, if of everything that we've said and everything we've talked about, your takeaway is that I'm championing a billionaire, you're either just intentionally not listening or you've already made up your mind before I'm talking. Second of all, this show dedicates a ton of time to talking about all of the issues that you've acknowledged. And finally, what do you mean fix that first? Like, fix that first how? Like, with what money? With whose money? Where? Like, fix it first how? So lay it out. This is all part of a bigger plan to bring investment downtown, to create opportunities, to ensure that areas, like I saw someone in the live chat earlier saying, how exactly is this benefiting downtown businesses? By drawing thousands of people downtown to spend their money. Like, I look at, and I don't speak for any of the other business owners, even here in Mercer Warehouse or down 104th, it's actually quite discouraging, to be honest with you. I mean, minus Baiju, which is always packed. Good for them, and I'm happy for them. But other than that, there's restaurateurs that are plugging hundreds of thousands, if not millions of dollars into restaurants all up and down 104th Street here in the capital city. And they're dead. In happy hour, they're dead. Well, and at some point, restaurant entrepreneurs and people that are deploying capital to make this type of stuff happen are going to go, it's just not worth it. And then what?
Yeah. And it's also like the playoffs is kind of the tail end of the busy season. Like more money is spent in the winter. When it's cold, when it gets darker earlier, people go up for dinner earlier, they get inside, they get warm, they spend more money, right? In the summer, people go to the mountains, people go camping, people like Alberta is an amazing place to explore. It's not really a destination downtown during the summer. So the longer the playoffs go and the longer that stuff, like you better believe every business downtown, whether it's a mom and pop or a chain, from the bottom to the top, was very thankful for the business that came here downtown. And just to the last comment you were saying, I mean, you can't, whenever we have a conversation like this, someone says, well, we have veterans who are homeless, or we have, people who are addicted to drugs that we need to help. But like, as a city grows, especially a major city like Edmonton, that stuff, and this may be hard to hear, it's never going to be when you say solve it, you're never going to have 0% houseless, 0% drug addiction, 100% just everyone's fine and dandy, and then start building things. There's always going to be those people that we need to help, and we need to address it. There are always going to be a percentage of those people as part of the population. And as we grow, that number grows too. And our job as a community, as people who care about this city, is to keep it as low as we possibly can and understand what we can do to help that percentage of the population. But when you say solve it, like, tell me a city that solved houselessness, that has no one who's on the street, that doesn't have someone in an alley who's lost a job and is addicted to drugs or is down on their luck. Like, that's just life. So it sounds silly to say that.
Ben's wondering just how many hundreds, if not thousands of jobs does the evil billionaire provide? It's a huge employment thing as well. Transjoy Unleashed says, Ryan says, I unequivocally disagree with you. Profit, unfortunately, has become a dirty word. I mean, I respect. I mean, you say unfortunately, so maybe you and I are on the same page. But like, I will say, like, if any business is unprofitable, it's out of business, including this one. So, like, I'm not sure, like, if everybody kind of like wants these solutions that in some circumstances make no sense or completely unfeasible or unrealistic, right? And so like businesses from like the micro businesses like us, the independent restaurants below us, the hospitality operators, the hotels, the Uber drivers, like everybody that's involved in every facet, right? The people running the independent convenience stores at 2 a.m. that benefit from all the revelers, like the action that it brings downtown, all of these people need to turn a profit. And if they don't, they have to close their doors. This is like, it's not even economics 101. It's like economics grade 3. And so I don't subscribe to profit as a dirty word, and people that think it is, maybe we see differently, right? That's perfectly fine as well. Guess what? This show and audience members and supporters of this show on the 19th of June, 1 week ago yesterday, managed to raise $61,500 for the Real Talk Julie Rohr Scholarship. And as we recognize our partners at the Ranch Golf and Country Club, we're heading into the Flamethrower. We're heading in hot, friends. I just want to, can we showcase some of Noob's drone flyovers again as well? This is one of our incredible audience members. You see Noob try again oftentimes in the live chat. Well, Noob was out there helping us. First of all, he helped us set up the Real Talk Tee Box, the cigar station, on the 4th hole at the ranch. And then Noob let his drone fly, getting us some just incredible photography of this beautiful golf course. We just want to thank everybody that turned out there. A sold-out field of 152 golfers, proudly presented by our friends at National Bank Financial. We had so much fun, and I just wanted to credit the hospitality team at the Ranch Golf and Country Club as well. From the moment, here you can see my tee shot. Not the best, Johnny, not the worst.
I can tell you felt not great about this, but it's a great shot.
It's tough with a gallery, like anytime you're teeing off with people watching it on camera, it's like, ugh. Nice 3-wood shaped over the bunker, put that team in a nice position for a pitching wedge in at a birdie putt. I'm not sure if they hit it or not. But the team at the ranch just did an amazing job, from the marshals, the team in the pro shop, the registration team, their culinary team. Those steaks were just unbelievable as well. Beautiful weather in store over the next week or so. You can book your tee time today by visiting theranchgolf.com. And don't forget, if you're in charge of booking the tournament for your business, for your nonprofit, nobody does it better than the team at the Ranch Golf and Country Club. North Road Investment Council, a steady hand, a studied voice to guide you through wealth and investing. I know that if you're like me, sometimes you're lying in bed at night just wondering, like, am I on the right track financially? Like, is my family going to be okay if something happens to me? Or am I going to be okay with my own savings if this market fluctuation continues? What should we do with our pensions? What should we do with our RSPs? Life's journey doesn't always follow a straight path. The financial journey oftentimes needs to be navigated. And discerning families, foundations, and associations have been turning to North Road Investment Council for years for a strategic approach to wealth management that aligns with their vision. If this sounds like a good fit for you, you can find them online today. Request a meeting. Sit down with Marshall and Carrie at North Road Investment Council. Again, that's northroadic.com. And hey, talking about action downtown, how can we not mention our friends at Edmonton Opera? Their 2025-26 season is celebrating legacy. You can explore the season online at edmontonopera.com. They've got some great productions coming up, including Bravi, Opera's greatest hits. That's later this fall in October. And then, of course, they've also got other productions as part of this season of legacy. The voices that came before, the stories we carry forward, the artists shaping what's next. This season, Edmonton Opera explores those legacies, and their 2025-26 season subscriptions are on sale now. Ticket prices 20% lower across the board. You can get those details at edmontonopera.com. Is Tommy Temper streaming us while he's on the road?
Hey, Tommy.
What's up, Tommy?
You gotta, oh, I thought
he's on a road trip to check out stuff in central Alberta. Says he's having a blast.
What's he doing out there?
He's streaming us. He says he's close to Red Deer. Eyes on the road, Tommy. Eyes on the road. We're going to get him all fired up. If Tommy gets a speeding ticket over these next 5 minutes because he's all fired up on the Flamethrower, that's not our fault.
Before you get to it, what are you doing with your Canada Day long? Are you going out of town? Are you driving anywhere? Are you getting on the road?
Kind of a bit of a mixed bag. So it's the NHL draft is tonight.
Okay.
Yeah,
but
so
after that.
you know me and my nerd buddies.
nice. Yeah.
We're all going to hang out and be.
Can't wait for that 87th pick. Maybe 77th.
Well, hey, but I had a tough year in one of I'm in 3 keeper pools, 3 hockey pools, and I had a tough year in one of them. I have the first overall pick. So, I'm
your actual, like your fantasy.
For my fantasy team, I have the first overall pick.
I thought you
so
meant like the actual draft.
No,
I was
so
like,
you're
waiting 2 hours in.
I'm going to be looking to see what happens there, play a little bit of golf, and then we're just going to spend some time as a family. How about you?
I'm driving to Panorama, BC tomorrow for a wedding. So 6-hour drive to go out there. A great friend who actually listens to the show getting actually remarried. They're in their like 40s, so it's going to be kind of a chiller vibe. And then, it's a 6-hour drive, and we're not back till I think Wednesday. So I may stay out in beautiful BC there for an extra day. Just take it. It depends on the weather, though. It's going to be raining there as well. So
I like it. Well, I wish you a very safe journey. And to everybody out there, this is a good time to remind everybody that we'll be back on the 2nd of July with the next episode of Real Talk as we celebrate the stat and the long weekend. We encourage you to do the same, and we wish you all well. We should mention all of the things, of course, thanks to those of you that are subscribing to our YouTube channel. Shout out to our Real VIP YouTube channel member, Reed Clark, as well. Of course, those of you that share our content, that leave a comment on it, really helps us grow this audience. A big part of what drives attention in this show is this weekly tradition presented by our friends at the DQs of Northwest Edmonton and Sherwood Park. These are Real Talkers' hottest takes from the week that was. It's the Flamethrower, presented by the DQs of Northwest Edmonton and Sherwood Park. Rosie writes in on the library book controversy here in the province. She says, oh, please, the UCP, the champions of freedom, are out here yanking books off school library shelves like it's some sort of moral whack-a-mole. Freedom from government overreach, they scream, right before reaching into a 9th grader's backpack and tearing out the content within. What's next? Book burning Tuesdays at the Ledge? Mandatory Goosebumps purges because they're too spooky? These are the same folks who lose their mind over censorship on Twitter, but when it comes to a teenager reading something slightly uncomfortable, suddenly it's like, won't everybody think of the children? You can't call yourself the Party of Liberty and then go full Puritan over a coming-of-age novel. You want freedom? Then trust kids to handle stories with some edges instead of pretending like they live in a Disney exclusive. So to everybody clutching their pearls over books they haven't even read, congratulations, you become the very snowflakes you've warned us about, and that, says Rosie, is a flamethrower. I love it right out of the gates. How about this from Cactus Sheriff, who says, remember, this was a YouTube comment, by the way, if any government of any level, whether that be federal, provincial, or your local school board, bans a book, it is your duty to find and read that book to learn what they don't want you to know. That from Cactus Sheriff. What about this one? We read this already from Jennifer this week. Had to fit it back into the Flamethrower for context. She says, what Don Iveson said on your show this week, Ryan, was factually untrue. Talking about Edmonton's downtown as compared to other downtowns. She says his limited perspective on the reason people are not seeing the value in downtown is actually that it's not been prioritized or respected by administration or the community. And his small-minded viewpoint isn't going to change the terms. Market-driven analysis will drive this, and until we change how we service the downtown core, we will not see investment. Anything else is delusional. Secondly, Jennifer says, you're the chair of CMHC, Don. How are you densifying downtowns across the country? So AJ writes in and says that email from Jennifer, she asked what Iveson's doing to densify downtown as chair of the CMHC. I just wanted to put some information out there that people may have forgotten about. Although Iveson joined the CMHC 3 months later, in March of last year, the city received $175 million, then an additional $17 million in March 25 from the CMHC for the Housing Accelerator Fund. Of that, the city's allocated almost $40 million to the Infill Infrastructure Fund to support developments that have significant costs for infrastructure like roads, sidewalks, and utilities. The fund is working, and it is driving more high-density residential developments that include the downtown core. AJ says, I'm also fairly confident in saying that without that funding, it's highly unlikely that any of these projects would have moved forward. Thanks, AJ. We appreciate the context. David says, Jespo, I live in a mature Edmonton neighborhood within a single family detached home. We have a 12-plex going up 3 blocks down from us. It's a monster. It's not NIMBYism to be concerned about increased density, traffic, and parking. Now, saying this, the first house I bought was a townhome within a 4-plex. A townhome allowed me to enter the housing market originally as it provided a lower price of entry. The logical conversation starts with ending any infills over 4 units on a single-family home parcel. But the density freaks will lose their mind as this is not enough density, and the single-family home fanatics will shout and yell that this is too much density. David says, it's a compromise. I love that, David. This one from Eddie the Valiant says, Jespo, I do think we need to make this sort of infill unprofitable for investors to be invested in housing, but not homeowners. And that way you get the investment firms and the foreign buyers and the house flippers and the slumlords out of the market. I say if you own more than one home, you get dinged with extra taxes. If you own more than one property, it's really hard for me to empathize with your situation, complaining about people who just want to live in their own home. That from Eddie. And this one from Thera-P, who says, Jespo, 6 months ago, Tim Cartmel voted for a 48-unit, 6-story building on 2 bungalow blocks, mid-block, 2 lots on a residential street with a single detached home right next to it. Does he regret this vote? Will he work to reverse his past mistake before they build on it? A 16-unit building would be perfectly reasonable in comparison. That from Thera-P, who submitted their flamethrower to talk@ryanjespersen.com. We've also drawn from our YouTube comments. Thanks to everybody that drops a hot take there. The flamethrower is proudly presented by the DQs in Palisades, Nemeo, Newcastle, Westmount, and Baseline Roads. Have a great long weekend, everybody. We can't wait to talk to you again. And in the meantime, don't forget to keep it real.
Real Talk is hosted by Ryan Jespersen, executive producer Josh Dunford, technical producer John Hicks, general manager Katie Cook-Chivers, account coordinator Lawrence Derlego, human resources Lena Shepard, website design Mike Johnston, voiceover by me, Carrie Skelton. Real Talk's editorial board is Supriya Dwivedi, Ahmed Ali, Brandy Morin, Ann Castleman, Corey Hogan, Harman Kandola, Catherine O'Neill, and Chris Henderson. Member Emerita, Julie Rohr. Real Talk is recorded in Edmonton, Alberta on Treaty 6 territory, the traditional and ancestral territory of the Cree, Dene, Blackfoot, Saulteaux, and Nakota Sioux, home to the Métis settlements and the Métis Nation of Alberta. Real Talk is a relay project. For more, check out ryanjespersen.com.